Welcome back to the Long War of the Chosen Patch 1.2 Guide Series. Today we're going to talk about two things. First of all, a little addendum to the Spark guide of last episode, because I forgot completely to talk about the Spark equipment, and there were some significant changes in 1.2, and that definitely deserves a little bit of a spotlight. The other thing we're going to talk about is officers, officer abilities, what to choose, what not to choose, and how to best utilize them. So let's start off with our friends, the Sparks. And there were two big changes with 1.2. The first change is that by default, when you unlock the Spark and the heavy weapon slot, you can now have the prototype plasma blaster as an alternative heavy weapon to the default shredder gun. Later on, of course, you get the shredstorm cannon and the regular plasma blaster, although there was a big change also to the regular plasma blaster. If you know it from before, it now has comes with two charges, two uses, while the prototype plasma blaster initially, when it was introduced, also had two users, but that was a little bit too strong, so it only has one use. Now, plasma blaster is a very it's a thin line, similar to a null lens, which of course, when we think about the perks for the Spark, if you go for Rainmaker, you have an increased area of effect, so that line becomes 3 tiles wide. So, which makes it a very decent AoE, and also one of the reasons why I really like this build with Rainmaker in the mix. It also has a very good cover destruction, very good environmental damage, and it causes rupture to the targets that it hits, which is, when you first get your Spark, a very early source of the rupture effect, getting you 1 additional damage to the targets, so that's still kind of nice. Now, the Shredder Gun and Shredstorm Cannons, as much as I like the Shredstorm Cannon, they're great for shredding, as the name suggests. They're not the absolute killer weapons that they're in vanilla XCOM 2. Personally, I'm all aboard Team Plasma Blaster, but I think they're kind of very close, the two weapons. It's really a thing of try them out, see what works best for you. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. But that being said, the rupture effect is really nice on the Plasma Blaster. That's really, if you are good on shredding, I would suggest using the Plasma Blaster. If shredding in your team is kind of light and you want some sort of AoE shred, let's say you don't have any grenades or rockets for shredding large groups of enemies, packing a Shredstorm Cannon can make a huge difference, especially on, like, let's say a UFO assault mission where there's usually one big group of 6-7 mechs or something like that. That can make a good effect. I mean, there's also the good old option of have both, and then depending on which mission you go to, equip yourself accordingly. That's also an important lesson for a lot of equipment questions, is don't just have one equipment set for a specific soldier or unit and always take it. Always see what else is in my squad. What am I running into in the mission? What do I need? Bring the right tools for the job. Alright, next up. Not a change in 1.2, but in general, is it worth upgrading your bit? Very often I end the campaign still with the basic Spark bit if I'm not super rich in money. The upgraded bits give you a bigger hack bonus and an increase in dodge chance, so reducing the incoming damage you receive, which is, it's not terrible, but it's not a huge effect, 0 dodge to 20 dodge. It will reduce incoming damage a little bit. Now, the text says the upgraded powered model greatly improves the damage and healing capabilities of the bit. So I think the repair effect might scale with the better bit. The heavy weapons have fixed damage. They're not related to the bit you have equipped. I think the damage of skills like Bombard might scale with the bit a little bit, but Bombard is really not a damage ability, it's a cover destruction ability. So I wouldn't really invest for that, but if you have the money to spare, absolutely take it. And also, we were talking in the Spark guide a little bit where I said I wouldn't invest XCOM role perks into the hacking skills. Now, don't get me wrong, they have a decent hack score, and they can get you a mission objective hack or something like that. Or maybe a tower hack, but keep in mind they don't have Haywire protocol, they can't hack enemy units. So they get some bonus stuff for hacking, and they can fill in for a specialist for an objective hack if you don't have one on the mission. But other than that, I wouldn't necessarily invest too much into it. Alright, weapons, no big changes there, but here's the biggest change. Spark armor. As you upgrade your armor, first to the reinforced and then to the powered armor version, you now have 3 armor versions. The basic one, a light version, and a heavy spark armor. Basic one is kind of the middle ground, just gives you the typical health, armor, mobility, and defense boost. And the light one does not give you initially any health boost. It only gives you 1 point of armor as opposed to 2 from the reinforced frame. It gives you 2 points of mobility instead of the 1 point you get here, and 15 defense as opposed to the 5 defense you gain from the reinforced frame. So you're less likely to be targeted. You have a significant lower amount of health, well, 2 points, and 1 point of armor. That also is gonna be quite relevant. In addition, you get the dedication perk. You should know that from your assaults. As a free action, you gain 2 mobility and ignore reaction fire for the rest of the turn, which is really nice for mobility and repositioning your unit. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the heavy armor. Same health as the reinforced frame, an additional 3rd point of armor, -1 mobility. So basically 2 less mobility than the reinforced frame. And instead of defense, you have dodge. So you're more likely to be targeted still. You don't have the increased defense, but you have a chance of taking the shot as a grace due to your dodge rate. And so getting less damage per shot, and then also with the additional armor that kind of synergizes in a way with that. The big selling point though for the heavy armor is the addition of an ammo slot. Normally you have no way of equipping your Spark with any sort of ammo slots. Then you can throw something in, depending on mission type again, I would say. You can, the usual good choice of AP rounds to deal with armored enemies. You could go for Shredder rounds, and if you have the Shredder perk, suddenly each of your shots shreds 5 points of armor, which basically shreds most enemies fully on a single attack, which is kind of nice. Or you can go for some damage increasing rounds like Talon, Venom, Dragon rounds, whatever you have available. You have all the options that you want. Blue screen rounds, obviously, not quite. I don't have any. Well, yeah. Blue screen rounds for some more anti-robotic damage. You have the options there. And then the same thing is true for the powered armor. So the anodized chassis is your default one. Now keep in mind, I say default one, you don't get one for free, right? You still have to build your armor as you after you unlock it. And it's a bit of a choice. I think they all cost exactly the same. We can look up. I'm fairly certain they all cost exactly the same. And then it's really then a choice what you want to bring. If you have the money, having multiple and then again equipping on the demands of the mission might be an option. Alright, but anyway, analyzed chassis. 4 health, 3 armor, 2 mobility, 10 defense. on the regular version, light version, 2 health, 2 armor, so again decreases survivability, but 4 mobility increase as opposed to 2. So putting you now at a base of 16 mobility and 20 defense. And again, still the dedication perk. And then the heavy armor with a whopping 4 health, 4 armor, still the same -1 mobility as the reinforced heavy armor. 5 defense and still the same 15 dodge. Although, you know, if you go for a heavy armor and then you have the money you invested in a powered bit, 35 dodge, suddenly the dodge number becomes somewhat relevant. And, you know, dodge shots with 5 armor, you would be quite tanky even without any tanking perks. So personally, I really value the ammo slot a lot on the heavy armor, so that's usually what I'm going for. But I think they're all decent choices. So just showing you what the options are. And again, we can just verify here in the build menu. The cost is all the same. 8 supplies, 10 alloys, 10 crystals, 2 cores for the heavy stuff, for the late game armor, and the plated version 40 and 5 for either of them. So it will cost the same. Again, I'm a big fan of the heavy armor, the ammo slot on the heavy armor. Although it needs to be said that 11 mobility that you then end up with due to the reduced mobility can be rough at times. So positioning is kind of important, utilizing high ground, and just knowing when you can dash and when your team needs you to just single move and shoot. Alright, so that's a big update on the Sparks. Now we're going to head over and look at some officers. Alright, so let's talk about officers. Officers can be trained in the guerrilla tactics school in the GTS once you build an officer training addendum, which costs a couple of supplies and 1 point of power, and then a soldier needs to go into training to get officer ranks. While you can in theory have every soldier as an officer on each mission, only 1 soldier is selected to be the commanding officer for that mission. Usually the one with the highest rank, and if 2 have the highest rank, then there's something else happening that decides who the officer will be. Just by virtue of being an officer, they have access to some specific abilities and passive bonus effects. Now, most importantly, there's leadership. Leadership provides a bonus to willpower, dodge, and infiltration to soldiers who have previously served under his or her command, under their command. These bonuses scale up the more missions they go on together. In the bottom left, you see a little thing called Leadership History, where you can see which other soldiers this officer has served with and who gets a bonus. Now, the exact bonuses you get here in terms of willpower, dodge, and infiltration time are fairly minor. So I wouldn't necessarily brute force them, but if you like to build more rigid squads, then that's basically the big payoff you get. There is, I would suggest, have a look at the wiki, see exactly, now, you don't have to go and look at the wiki. I'm going to go and look at the wiki, and we're going to get the exact numbers in here. This is a guide after all. Alright, so for dodge, you get half a point of dodge chance per mission that you've served under this officer for the soldiers, right? After 20 missions, you reach 10 dodge, which is the cap. You can't get more than 10 dodge. And yeah, keep in mind, 20 missions under the same officer. This is a very late game save. These are roughly the numbers we're looking at here. And I kind of tried in this run to keep squads together. Maybe it didn't quite work out. Then the next bonus is willpower. You get 1 extra willpower per mission, and after 40 missions you cap at 40 additional willpower. That is actually, I mean, 13 willpower for somebody when my maximum is 52 for this soldier. Most soldiers are going to be in that kind of space, so you're talking about a fairly significant boost to your willpower. Percentage-wise, like a quarter extra willpower is nothing to sneeze at. It will mostly help with reducing chance to be affected by psionic attacks. I don't think it has any impact on your tiredness and your usage of willpower during the mission for sort of tiredness effects. It's really just for any sort of panic rolls that you're more likely to resist them because your current willpower is higher. And then there's a bonus to infiltration time. You get a 0.75% reduction in infiltration time per mission, kept at a whopping 25% reduction, and after 34 missions together. This is kind of the one big thing where it can actually get fairly significant, having the same officer with the same squad. Infiltration time is kind of your bread and butter. That being said, it falls a little bit like in comparison to what we're going to later talk about, the infiltrator perk. This is going to make a much bigger impact on your squad's infiltration time than the squad cohesion that you have from leadership. Alright, then we have command. Command is an active ability with a limited number of charges where you can give another soldier an extra action. That soldier needs to be in your line of sight. And it ends your turn. So that's why when I'm talking about officer candidates, I often said, okay, do we have a non-turn ending action that you can combine with command in order to get the most value out of it? You get more charges of this as you rank up in the tree. So you start with 1 charge, and I think then every 2 ranks you get an additional charge. So at the end of the tree, you have 4 charges of command. And I think this is probably one of the strongest officer effects. There are some restrictions here. You cannot use it on units that are on Overwatch or that are currently suppressing another target, which I kind of often brought up with like the watch and run spec, where your unit will go on Overwatch automatically after throwing a grenade, so they can no longer be targeted by command, which can be a little bit limiting. And you cannot use it on robotic allies, so sparks, or on civilians, so any VIP you capture, you cannot command them. But this is kind of your bread and butter skill. An additional action can really be the difference between a flawless mission and coming out there with a couple injuries. Now, not listed here on the table, but we can see them scrolling by. There's this ability called You'll Need This. If your officer is equipped with a pistol and is standing next to a VIP on a mission, they can give them a ballistic pistol, even if you have a plasma pistol equipped, as a weapon. So the VIP can actually fire at enemies. Yeah, it's a thing that exists. I'm just, for completeness, listing it here, but I very rarely get any value out of it or even remember that it exists, but it's there. You'll need this. Then Commissar is also an ability that exists, which allows you to one-shot any mind-controlled soldier. If one of your soldiers gets mind-controlled by the enemy, you can execute them. I don't know why you would ever use this. It's one of the buttons in, 8 years of Long War that I've never pressed. And yeah, this is unnecessary. But yeah, somebody really wanted to have that in the game. So, next up we have intervention. During a mission, you can spend 10 intel to gain 2 turns on the current mission timer. And I think you can do that 2 times per mission. Now, 10 intel is a fairly steep cost for something, but this can be the difference between suddenly getting swarmed by reinforcements, for example, on a smash and grab crate mission that went south, and making it out with all the crates and no injuries. This can really help you in getting to that hack objective on a train mission, because you spawned on a map where the train car has that no line of sight from external, and you need to get to the other side of the train to even get into the train car to hack the objective, and you're just running out of time. Most of the time in Long War, the mission timer is not really your enemy, but the reinforcement timer. So keep in mind, this does very little, except for the missions where the reinforcement timer and the mission timer kinda belong together. For example, the classical smash and grab, where after a certain number of turns, the reinforcements will come in. Or even the crate extraction also has a... think the crate extraction, I'm actually not sure. I think that's a more, I'm not sure if it works there. I've never used it on a crate extraction. It might work, but keep in mind, intel is a very, very valuable resource, and expanding it for this effect can be a little bit rough. Then all the way at the bottom, you see something called command range. Now, interestingly, command range has nothing to do with the command ability. In the mission, you have a little green icon here at the top that shows you a green radius around your officer. This is your command range. This range is important for certain of the ability in the tree. For example, get some, which gives everybody a critical hit chance bonus if they're in the command range of the officer. So this command range increases as you rank up your officer, and like any sort of passive effects on activated effects that affect soldiers only affect soldiers in that command radius. So before you hit a button like Oscar Mike or get some or something, click that green icon to double check that the soldier you want to hit with this is actually in the command range. Alright, so let's talk about the various ranks. I'm gonna start off saying that most of my officers will probably look like this. So at Lieutenant, you've got Oscar Mike, gives everybody in the command range +5 mobility for the remainder of the turn. You have 1 charge of this per mission, and it doesn't affect the officer themselves. 5 mobility seems really strong, but on the other hand, you have focus fire, you spend action point to pinpoint a target, you gain 1 armor piercing against that target, and 5 aim that increases by 5 with each additional attack. A cumulative aim bonus against the target. So the more people shoot the same target, the easier it is to hit. This is exceptionally great against Chosen. It's reasonably good against any sort of boss enemies like Sectorport's Gatekeepers, what have you. And it's just really solid against everything else. 1 armor is often enough to make a difference, and hey, you get 5 extra aim against that enemy shield bearer that's in cover there. Sure. And then somebody else shoots it, and now it's 10 aim, 15 aim, 20 aim. You should really be hitting it by now. It's a 3-turn cooldown and unlimited amount of charges per mission. So kind of my choice here. There are some use cases for Oscar Mike, but usually, so my personal philosophy for my officers is I don't want to remember what kind of different skills they have. So I give everybody the same skills. That's the lazy man's choice here. Of course, doesn't mean you have to do it this way. It just works for me. Anyway, next level. Get some. 20% crit chance for everybody who's in range. 2 charges per mission. Or incoming. easier to see it this way. You activate the ability. Everybody in command range gained 4 points of damage resistance against explosive attacks. 5-turn cooldown. Free action. It wasn't even aware. It doesn't apply to panicked or stunned soldiers. So it's kind of, as the name suggests, if you know there's a mech or a grenadier who's going to hit you with an AoE explosion attack, you can pop this, 4 points of damage resistance. So the first 4 points will be ignored. Still going to get 1 point minimum damage, I'm fairly certain. It's super situational. It's super situational, and generally, if you get bombarded by enemy mechs, that's probably more a failure in your target priorities than something you should plan for with officer abilities. So I'd say this is, in my opinion, one of the weakest officer skills, and that's why I'm saying Get Some is just so good. 20% bonus critical hit chance can make a difference where some of your soldiers will then hit the magical 100% crit chance with their attacks, especially your assaults would like that, or your Death Dealer Reaper, who now gets 100% crit chance and can stay hidden and kill the enemy. So there's just so many uses for Get Some. I just think that's a better perk. Captain rank, Trial by Fire with Gemma. Trial by Fire, if you have a soldier that's below the sergeant rank on the same mission as the officer, they will automatically get a and the mission is a success, very important. They will automatically get a promotion, get enough XP to reach the next level at the end of the mission. This is, of course, very useless and towards the end of the game, where you don't have low-ranking soldiers anymore, or you wouldn't bring low-ranking soldiers to missions, but it's incredibly strong early on. It's one of the reasons why I kinda try to build a very early officer training school, or officer attachment to the GTS, so I can have Trial by Fire and level up my whole barracks. There's even an argument to be made to turn your highest ranking soldier at the start of the campaign into an officer, just to train up to Trial by Fire, so they can then help the rest of the barracks to catch up. Sergeant is a fairly decent rank where soldiers can perform a little bit, and they're no longer feeling like a burden to be dragged for the mission. Gemma, you delay incoming reinforcements by 1 turn. So the big an important note here is that on missions where you get multiple reinforcement waves, like a retaliation with reinforcements or an invasion, etc., so you push the current reinforcements back 1 turn, but all the other following reinforcements are not affected. So if you push 1 wave back, then that means you might get 2 waves of reinforcements in the same turn. It'll still buy you some time, buy you some breathing room, but it can also make things a little bit harder in the future. It's, again, for me, I think Gemma is an okay ability. I just really like to have the same sort of skill set on most soldiers, most of my officers, so that I'm, not in a situation where, hey, I found a mission with a great timer, but my Trial by Fire officers are not available, so now I can't take advantage of that. So that's why I'm usually going with Trial by Fire of everyone. Doesn't mean Gemma is bad. I just often also forget to use it. So that's on me. And again, most of this guide is just explaining how something works and what the use cases are. And the decision is then up to you. Major. Lead by example. Officer improves aim, willpower, and hex score of soldiers within the command range by half the difference between the soldier and the officer. Now, right from the get-go, we can just say, forget about will, forget about hex score. Nobody cares. Like, if your officer has a high hex score, then them giving a hex score to other soldiers doesn't matter, because they're probably a specialist, and a second specialist gaining a little bit more hex, whatever. You're going to use the highest hex soldier in the mission anyway. Willpower, again, is kind of okay for resisting mental attacks, but aim is where it's at. So this is basically a skill that I never take unless I build a holo-targeting sharpshooter as an officer. And then it's fantastic. Then it's amazing. Then it's absurd. Of course, let's say a high-aim sharpshooter as an holo-targeting officer. They can have, towards the end game, around 110, maybe a little bit more aim stat, natural aim stat, just with some help from PCS. You can even send them on a covert operation to gain some additional aim. And then let's say if you were not an officer, but you had that 110 aim theoretical holo-targeting officer in your squad with you, with your 76 base aim, that's a difference of 34. So you would get 17 aim just for having the officer in your squad, in your command range. So that's a fairly significant boost just for doing nothing, right, in the mission. And in addition, then that holo-targeter also brings his holo-targeting skills, yada yada yada. For everybody else, literally every other officer takes Collector. Collector gives you a 1 in 3 chance to gain an additional point of intel when you kill a non-human enemy, so a non-advent enemy. At max 10 intel per mission. Well, very rarely. That would mean killing 30 non-human enemies. That never happens, but still, it's a nice little trickle of intel, and every point of intel is important to make your connections to new regions, to potentially boost missions, and all that other stuff. So the additional intel income, very, very important, I think. So get your officers up there. This rank is a fun one. Fire discipline, plus 10 aim, 2 Overwatch shots, which this is also already with the Overwatch penalty in mind. So this is after the Overwatch penalty, you get 10 aim. So in reality, I think it gives you 14 aim. And then the Overwatch penalty comes in, or 15. Or on the other hand, defilate plus 5 defense when you're in cover. This is really just personal preference. Maybe also, if you don't build too many overwatching soldiers, then Fire Discipline, of course, loses a little bit on value, but even then, you're still gonna be in Overwatch from time to time. Defilate, well, you don't need extra defense from cover if you just kill everything before it takes shot at you. That, I like to say that line, but I don't actually believe it myself, because there's always going to be enemies that shoot at you, and 5 extra defense can prevent a wound here and there. So, interestingly, both of these perks were apparently completely bugged in Long War 2 and didn't do anything, and then I saw a patch note that defilate was fixed, and I'm like, haha, I always took Fire Discipline, so, that bug didn't affect me. And then a month later, somebody like, oh, Fire Discipline also wasn't doing anything, it's fixed now. So, yeah, they work now. That's the most important thing, and whatever you prefer, whatever your squad's lineup supports, is a good choice here. My personal choice is usually Fire Discipline. Hurdle rank. Infiltrator gives you the whole squad a better infiltration time, so you infiltrate faster to your mission. Means you can reach that 100% with more soldiers on late game missions. We're talking about very late game here already. And once you get a soldier to colonel, that's a little bit of investment. So you infiltrate faster, you can run missions you otherwise wouldn't be able to run, or bring more soldiers on bigger missions, or just save some time on those big HQ assaults or story time missions. It's just great. It's just great. Will be significant in stealth here. Yeah, it's reducing infiltration time. And it's not like Tradecraft where like, oh, it reduces infiltration time and it barely does anything. No, Infiltrator makes a huge difference. It's great. Air controller, the Sky Ranger will arrive 2 turns sooner during evacuations. Is a perk that exists. So this is the one rank where I'm saying, yeah, take Infiltrator. This is so rare and situational. I guess back in the day, back in the original Long War, there was this whole stealth running missions with like a specialist and a shinobi or something like that, and you just sneak to the objective, throw the evac, get the hack, and get out of there. That's not the way I play the game, so that's why I get very little value out of Air Controller. So that might be like a niche case where Air Controller might be useful, or for people who solo stealth alien facilities, so they don't have to sit around that long waiting for that evac to arrive. But I think for late game rank, this feels really weak. But if you have like exceptionally great use cases for Air Controller, let me know in the comments. Always interested to see, maybe there's an angle that I'm not seeing here. And that's talking as someone who occasionally forgets to throw an evac in the first place, and then like, okay, sometimes I would really like to have it 2 turns faster, but that's just making up for taking a perk to make up for occasionally messing up. Doesn't seem like good investment. Infiltrator is great. And finally, Field Commander. +1 damage to all for every successful attack. It's kind of nice, adds up, it's good. Scavenger, mission rewards of supplies. Alien allies in the room increased by 30%. And squad members have a chance of collecting extra alloys in the room from aliens. Usually I'm going for combined arms because at this point it's so late in the campaign when you get your first field commander that most of the time I would say resources don't matter anymore. You should have such a good economy that this little dribble of resources will not move the needle, and +1 damage is just the difference between, you know, enemies dying or enemies still being alive with 1 hit points or potentially injuring your squad. That being said, if you really manage to somehow fast track an officer to the final rank super fast, and it's still like mid to late game, then maybe you can get some good value out of Scavenger, and then also, you know, bring that specific officer to missions where you actually get these kind of rewards. There's obviously no point having a Scavenger officer on a jailbreak. You're not getting supplies, alloys, or allium from that mission, outside of the chance of getting some drops from aliens. That all being said, a big caveat here. I know that the officer tree is pretty much, outside of bug fixes, still the same as it was in the past. I've seen several discussions in the Discord server about revamping the officer tree, so keep that all in mind if you're watching this guide and it's been 2 years since the video released. Maybe they finally came up with some changes to the officer tree with a rework. I think this is still kind of on the roadmap, a rework of officer abilities. And we'll have to see in the future if I have to do a 3rd officer guide. For now, we're gonna put a cut in here though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.